been trying. Islam. Well, let me begin by just saying Islam. So I'm on 2 platforms tonight. I didn't even send out the notifications for this platform because I didn't really particularly want to send it out. Sometimes I don't do these things because I want to see if people are going to participate at their own leisure and at their own time. Plus, I want to kind of test it on both platforms in regards to false imprisonment. This class is installation number 3 on false imprisonment, and I normally start and hold the classes at 7 o'clock, but today I'm holding the class just a little bit early because I'm testing it on 2 platforms just to see how I can kind of work the 2. I haven't really been officially processing it on the 2 platforms, so this is technically the first time. Islam, so this class is literally on false imprisonment. If anybody is new to the platform, this platform is this course on false imprisonment. The course material can be found on my Academy website. The Academy website is www.YeSharon That's www.YeSharon I am testing this platform tonight because I normally host this class exclusively on Zoom, but I wanted to open it up to the public because the information and the content is essential for everybody. So if you're new to my platform, which is the YeSharon Moabite Star Academy platform on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel so you will be alerted to every time this class is in session. Now, I'm new to YouTube, the YouTube platform, and using it in a live broadcast, and there's going to be more live broadcasts coming in the future, but I wanted you guys to kind of know that this false imprisonment class is very necessary. It's necessary because people don't know the law. People don't know their rights. People don't know that for, at least in America, 90% of criminal prosecutions are done and they didn't have the lawful authority for which to even initiate such claims against the people. And I'm not even going to limit the people by being just Moors, Moroccan nationals, Moorish Americans, African Americans, Afro Americans, however you within this social paradigm identify yourself. So if you have any interactions with the so-called public works or the so-called public officers or public agents, etc., there are rules, or let's say there are laws that they have to follow in order to interact with you. And if they don't have any orders and if they don't have any authority coming in, they have to gain that authority through a court of law. What do I mean by that? There's only certain situations where a policy enforcer or even an FBI agent or even any other type of agent under the jurisdiction of the judicial system of even the United States of America, they have to have specific orders to interact with the people, right? So we have a course on the YeSharon Moabite Star Academy. That course is called False Imprisonment. And we all know at least one person who's literally sitting in a facility fighting a case that they found themselves involved in just by who they hang around, or specifically could be false identification or just a breach of your lawful rights as a so-called inhabitant, as a citizen, as a protected person, protected class, or protege under the United States of America. Understand that coming in, Moors. So this class is a class that I normally hold at 7 p.m. Eastern time on my private Zoom platform, but I'm going to start Zooming it in on both. I just want to figure out how I'm going to do that, or just merge it completely to YouTube. So my normal individual, so the people that normally come into my classes will be either on the audience floor or active participation, where we can get communications between individuals. Fair enough? Because I didn't send the notifications out this evening to inform people of the classes, because sometimes I just want to see if people are getting their mind wrapped around these things. So if you subscribe to my channel, you'll automatically get access to or notifications that these classes will be happening on Tuesdays and on Thursdays, because ignorance of the law is no excuse. There's a lot of platforms out there that are claiming to give you law and are claiming to give you remedy, but the reality is you're going in these particular court venues, you are the individual who has to bring these claims in. If you're not going to, if you're a defendant or even a plaintiff within any so-called action against you, or you are putting against another, you have to be competent to lodge that complaint, or you have to contract with a bar licensed attorney for the particular state in order to be heard in that venue in regards to that cases. And we absolutely positively know attorneys are not going to be eager to bring a case against a so-called law enforcement agent, even if they violated your liberties. So that leaves a lot of us to defend ourselves in regards to a civil case against individuals who violate our law, because public officials and public agents only have immunity while they're following due process of law. Does anybody know what due process of law means? Due process of law means you know the law, you are deemed as a so-called public official to honor the law. You're literally deemed to honor the law. So when I say, when a policy enforcer or an agent comes to contract with you or comes to interact with you on any, whether it's a lawful ordered situation, or if they're just, walking around and asking questions, you need to absolutely positively know what your rights are as inhabitants, African American, Moroccan nationals, yada, yada, yada. That's a famous term that everybody likes to use, yada, 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 yada. You have to know your law. You have to know the law, right? Because a policy enforcer, because of the lack of knowledge that our people have, not only when being addressed by a policy enforcer, they don't know what actions they can put in or complaints that they can file to stop the harassments of individuals who just assume that they have authority over you. And absence of the law is absence of the law is no excuse, or ignorance of the law is no excuse for not only someone violating you, but it'll help you. Knowing the law will help you have a, what's the word I'm looking for, Moors? It'll help you have a defense against violations against you. So the false imprisonment class is already available, as well as the course material is already available on the YeSharon Moabite Star Academy website. I've updated the form. I've updated the document that we are using in regards to studying the Treaties. It's called the Treaties on false imprisonment. And it's obviously, this is backwards. It's going to show it backwards because I have the camera looking at me. But this document is downloadable from the website, so you have a copy of it. Now, my copy has the answers because there's questions, there's definitions, there's terms, there's even tester tester examples on different situations that will constitute false imprisonment. So we're having this class on both platforms. If you have a question or you want to make a comment, please put it in the comment section on the chat so we can interact. So I'm trying to do this on a new platform, YouTube. I do want to stream it on also on Facebook so I can be on all platforms so everybody can get a benefit of false imprisonment. I personally know at least 10 people who are dealing with this situation right now where the due process of law was not followed when an individual was apprehended, when an individual was questioned, or when an individual's property was searched or their persons seized. You have remedy Morris, and you do not have to always contract with an attorney or even a lawyer, because what is the retainer? Does anybody know the standard retainer that an attorney will ask before they will even do anything? The standard amount, depending on the law agency that you go through, would ask you to just to retain them as legal counsel. They'll ask you for at least $1,000 to $5,000 just to start the process. And then obviously you'll be making these things in payments. But in the climate in the climate that we're in now, where everything is going up except your income, you absolutely you need to know the laws that support you with bringing a civil claim against any public or private citizen who violates your rights and doesn't follow due process of law and puts their hands physically on you or takes your property without your consent. Because without your consent, they have to have two elements. We're going to learn that in this class. You're going to have two elements. The first class that we had on this was the introduction, which just talked about your liberties and different things like that. And I'm not sure for the individuals that are on this particular platform, which ain't that many, because like I tell you, I didn't send out the notification for this class tonight. I didn't send it out because I wanted to see, well, who's going to just automatically know that Thursday we have class. Normally it starts at 7 o'clock, but Thursday we have class talking about false imprisonment and how to start the claims. At the end, in the conclusion of the classes, because there are 8 chapters in this document. There are literally 8 chapters in this document. And if you want to participate and be reading the documents at the same time we're talking about and discussing the documents, well, you need to go to the YeSharon Moabite Star Academy website. That's YeSharonMoabiteStarAcademy.com. You need to click on the class assignment page. You need to click on that class assignment page. Guess what's going to happen when you click on the class assignment page? It's going to ask you for a passcode. If you want that passcode, please send me an email. Everybody knows what YeSharon's email is. My email address is located at the bottom of that page, so you can have the course material as well as the videos to start reading and start researching cause of actions in terms of civils as well as defense and criminal. After this class concludes for false imprisonment, the next class will be criminal prosecutions. But civil and criminal is pretty much the same, Morse. Civil and criminal kind of falls in the same category in terms of this documentations that you need, the rules of court that you're going to need, because right now, while states are being established, Moroccan states are being established all over the country, several already established, you need to know the law in the meantime, in between time. What am I saying in that regards? Because the first class that we had last week, and please, when you go to the website and you download a copy of the class, of the false imprisonment class, please make sure you print out that document and get it binded up. This treatise was actually illustrated and published by Charles A. Wiseman. It was Charles A. Wiseman back in 1994 is when this treatise was established to let people know that these are rights that you never stopped having. You just never knew you had them, because ignorance is not bliss. It actually costs a lot, and some people lose their freedom for a lack of information and for a lack of knowledge of self. So understand the things that happen to us within our Moroccan Empire, the things that happen within the so-called United States, which is in Morocco. United States is in Morocco, not the other way around. So if United States is in Morocco, United States of America has to follow certain procedures. So do people who are within as well as outside of that jurisdiction. On Tuesdays, maybe next week I'll be starting, but Tuesdays next week I'll be starting international law, because nobody understands international law because they're not focusing on international law. And that's the platform that nations and countries interact when there's a dispute between one another. As well as, if you understand United States of America, think about United States of America. Everybody knows about the standing treaty between the United States of America and the Moroccan Empire. That standing treaty is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It talks about consular relations. It talks about consular jurisdiction. And these are, again, other things that you are supposed to know. You didn't learn it in high school. You didn't learn it in college unless you actually majored in international law, and you didn't learn it in any other subsequent type of venues, because why? There was no benefit to training individuals on international law, because everybody was under admiralty time jurisdictions, I can't even say the word. They were dealing with jurisdictions that were not of an international level, because you're dealing with citizens. And at that particular time, Moors thought that they were citizens of the United States. Well, to a degree, Moors are citizens of the United States, only because of the lack of statehood in their own right as it relates to their status today. Not yesterday, not in the 1700s, not in the 1600s, not even in the 1800s, or the 1900s. Because no states were established back then, because nobody was following international law. Nobody was following the treaties that so stipulate those things. So while Moorish states are being established, Moors are continuing to deal with a lot of violations in their rights and in their persons. And just for those individuals who joined the Zoom call, we're on Zoom as well as on YouTube tonight, because I'm going to ultimately be switching the platform over to YouTube, so it's more of an audience, because everybody has YouTube. People don't understand. A lot of people don't know how to use these different private platforms, but everybody has a YouTube account because it's linked to Google. And in order to get into the Google account and to get into the YouTube account, you got to sign in through Google. So you already, most of America, air quotes, kill brackets, have YouTube accounts. They have YouTube accounts. They have Facebook accounts. They have Instagram accounts. My method is to reach those three platforms together for these podcasts that I'll be having, where I'll be having quick skits to talk about, as well as I'll create little narratives where I'll use my son as well as other teenagers so the people can gain awareness to law. They have to gain awareness to law. I am so sick and tired. I'm just going to tell you, I am so sick and tired of people creating platforms to just talk about things. My platform is to begin the talk or to begin the knowledge for you. But what is to ultimately come out of it in my mission is to change people's lives one mind at a time. What do I mean when I say change people's lives one mind at a time? The more information and the more knowledge that you have, the more things you will begin to do. I should have put this camera on I should have put it on, what do I want to say? I should have put it on landscape, is it? Is it landscape? I think it's landscape, so it gives you a wider picture, because eventually I'll be going to the board in getting up, because I'm used to being interactive with these classes, so I can just start writing specific things down on the board. I didn't erase the board, so I can't particularly write on it right now, but maybe in the next class, I'll actually be utilizing my board and pulling you guys to the side so you can see what it is that I am writing on the board, so you can start taking notes and get these fundamental things or points of interest in terms of everything that we're talking about. So last class we had, again, eventually I'm going to put across the screen that you got to go to YeSharon Moabite Star Academy to pull down this information. I'm going to hopefully be able to use the boards on here to kind of put up those particular things, but bear with me. This is my first live on 2 platforms streaming at the same time. So my focus is a little all over the place. I feel like I got, it's all over the place. So with that being said, I guess my first question is, who's here? Is everybody here that normally comes on my class? Is everybody in participation? Now, this Treaties document, again, is located on the YeSharon Moabite Star Academy website under the class assignments page. If the people that are participating get the email notifications for class, you will see the email notifications for class that actually has all the information as well as the login passcode to get on the class assignments page on the website. So my question right now pretty much is has everybody been on the site? Has individuals gotten on the site in order to get the information? Could you please post the website on the YouTube platform so individuals have access to that? But going forward, what we talking about, Morris? We talking about false imprisonment, false arrest and false imprisonment. And we all either know of someone who this has happened to, or it has happened to you. Now, the better question is, do you realize you have a legal and lawful basis to file a claim against those individuals who violated your rights in regards to false imprisonment? Did you know you can file a civil claim against the co-conspirators, whether they were public officers or not public officers? You have that lawful right to file a claim against them. That claim would be false imprisonment as well as malicious prosecution. There's specific material facts that have to be present for both of these things. And the question is, well, do you know that? Do you know that people don't have the right, policy enforcers don't have the right to pull you over just because they suspect something, or they think or feel something, or make up things like, oh, you were swerving in and out of traffic? Well, that's the number one excuse that a policy enforcer will give you for pulling you over. Well, just because they might have pulled you over because you were swerving, or their statement or their comments or facts on why they pulled you over, they can't just pull you over for any old thing. They can't just pick you out of all the people traveling to pull you over. They're not allowed to do that, Moors. They have to have a reason. There has to be a justifiable reasons. The question is, Moors, do you know what that reason is? Do you know what are the only reasons, the only lawful reasons that they can pull you over? And that's open to the floor. That's open to the chat on YouTube, and that's open to the individuals that are on this Zoom platform to tell me what are the reasons, the 2 specific reasons that they can pull injured party? Be specific, Lady Bob. Be specific. An injured party. That is true. But what would constitute an injured party? What so-called element of their ability to detain you? And I'm not trying to give you guys the answer. I'm trying to see if you can come, where your knowledge is today. Because guess what? When you put a civil claim up or an argument against a criminal claim, you have to justify it with the law. You can't just say, well, a lot of times things that I've read, briefs and templates or claims that I have assisted Moors in producing harm to another person, an injured party. So to elaborate on an injured party, be a breach of the peace. Islam, Mr. Brown, I think I know who Mr. Brown is. Islam, Mr. Brown, a breach of the peace. That's one. What are the other two? You got breach of the peace. An injured party kind of represents a felony. So I'm going to give you that, Lady Bop. I'm going to give you that, Lady Bop, in terms of you stating injured party. An injured party, which would mean kind of a felony. They had to witness, y'all. They had to see with their own eyes. Now, here's the elements. They have to see with their own eyes you breaching the peace or committing a felony. They have to see you doing this. They can't just see you running down the damn street and think that, oh, well, why would this person be running down the street? Well, they could be jogging. Or here's another one. What's interesting, I didn't give me the other one. The other lawful way for them to lawfully detain you is an actual valid arrest warrant. It has to be valid. So there's certain elements of an arrest warrant that have to be present in order for them to lawfully be able to obstruct your liberty, right? To stop you from going and coming wherever to detain you. Because to detain you is to strip one of his or her liberty. And there's only 3 situations for which that can be done. The Constitution pretty much tells you the only 2, really. And the only 2, because it doesn't talk about any breach of the peace in the Constitution. It actually talks about just the actual injured party and a valid warrant, right? So a valid warrant has to have what? What's a valid warrant? What's a valid warrant? And these are all in the treaty on false imprisonment that can be located on the website. This treaty is going to give you so much information, and it's only like 70 pages. It's 70 pages of concrete information, and it keeps going back and forth into what that is. And I've added questions at the end. I've added definitions and terms to be defined at the end, so you can really enhance your understanding, because you cannot just, well, some people probably can, but most of us have to study these words and have to use these words and has to have a signature of a judge. Absolutely. That is one thing that has to be on a warrant for it to be valid. And that signature has to be what? Can't be a stamp. Has to be a wet ink signature. And it has to be a signature from a judge. Nobody else has the authority, because who hires the judge, Moors? I mean, the people elect these individuals, or they're appointed. So their job first is to that Constitution, because that is who they take the oath to. They take the oath to the Constitution to follow it. To follow it. But if your arguments, Moors, don't present the right argument, if all you say is my due process of law was violated. So if you say due process of law violations, well, what constitutes a violation of due process of law? What constitutes a violation of probable cause? What is the definition of probable cause? Because you can't sit here and argue something if you don't know what it means. And not only if you don't know what it means, you can't argue it, right? So the aim of this class is to get you competent. Not only is it to get you competent in knowing your rights when you are interfacing with an individual, a policy enforcer, and they're trying to strip you of your rights by filing a claim against you, a charge against you, a violation, a statute, whatever. You need to know what it is you have to defend. So you have to know, well, what are the charges against me? So, because you said it has to have a signature of a judge, what else does the warrant have to have? And when you are being detained on the side of the road, in your place of dwelling, the first thing you should be asking is, do you have a warrant? And not only do you have a warrant, do you have a valid warrant? And not only do you have a valid warrant, let me say it, I need to inspect it. Because a lot of times they will just say, we've all watched enough law classes, we've all watched enough of a lot of things to say, well, and it shows you how people are violated, but it also gives you arguments, and it also gives you defenses, right? Because we're on these platforms, and the one thing we need to honestly ask ourselves is, What does a valid warrant have? There's 6 or 7 elements of a valid warrant. Next class, I am definitely going to be writing on the wall because I'm going to just be spitting them out to you, right? In terms of this, but I need participation because this class is not just about what I know. It's about what you don't know. Now you know. So when you do have a situation and you are being accused of something by a public officer who files an initial complaint, what else is supposed to be attached? Because you said harm, injury, you said a breach of the peace. Nobody on this platform has said anything yet. And if you did, you might be talking in the chat on here, which I don't see. So I don't think anybody's chatting over here, but you definitely can unmute your mics and let me know what it is you're saying on this platform, right? Because I don't want to get to the habit of open up this book. I want you guys to have your course material ready for these classes because this is going to help you build your defense or significant others. There's a lot of people who have significant others in facilities fighting for their independence, fighting for their rights, fighting for their liberties, having these fake charges on them. What are examples of some of these fake charges? And someone said, must state the facts that show the matter to be within the jurisdiction of the official issuing the warrant. Absolutely. Must be supported by oath and affirmation. Absolutely. Exactly. Those are 3 elements. We got 3 more elements. What else got to be on there? The facts is kind of like, why was this warrant issued? Why was this warrant for arrest issued? So think about it. What should be logically through common sense added in a warrant? Think about it, Moors. This is a real good question in regards to that. And I think somebody actually put something in the chat. Reading the document. Please, okay. Reading the document, Islam. So the warrant has to have what elements? Because that is in what, chapter 4, chapter 5, what chapters? Chapter 6 talks about warrant. We didn't even get to chapter 6 more. But again, tonight's class is kind of a refresher. Not a lot of people on the Zoom, not a lot of people on this platform because ain't nobody really used to this. Plus, you probably got other platforms that you already participate in. I'm trying to tell you, I'm not a passive Moor. I am a very active Moor. And I need you guys to be just as active in this regards as well. Because a lot of things that the policy enforcers are doing to our people, they would not continue to do to our people because they wouldn't continue to do it if always got to be a heckler. Always a heckler. But I guess I'll let you stay there and talk your nonsense. But anyway, let's get back to the topic. If we had these things, if we had these defenses, if we had these rights, if we knew these rights, things would not have happened. We would not have had the situations that happened to us happen to us. I wouldn't have had to spend any time in any facilities, nor did a lot of your family's friends would not have had to spend time in facilities if we had the right argument. So I'm not at all harmed by it. Say what you need to say. Islam. So what am I saying? Next topic is, no, we're still talking about warrants. We're still talking about warrants, Moors. So what are the other elements? What are the elements? It had to be signed by a judge, right? An actual judge who has jurisdiction over the subject matter and over the persons. Can't be any old judge. Has to be subject matter, right? It has to also be, what's the other one? It has to also have the charges against you. It has to, and that's the facts in regards to the charges, an affidavit sworn, right? It has to have all of those things. It has to identify you in the warrant. It has to say, well, who are you in the warrant? So it can't just say, oh, a tall Asiatic woman who wear glasses. Well, that's not a positive identification, and that's not a warrant. That warrant could be for anybody who looks like me. It could be anybody, right, Morris? So what's the next elements? Islam. Any questions that are relative to the subject matter? Because again, you know our people. I mean, some people are our people and some people are not. And based on their comments, you know who ain't. Islam. Am I charging? Y'all so funny. Our people are the most, I love my people, but they are so misconstrued. Natalie, got any comments? You Sariel, did I say that right? Do you have any comments or any questions to ask while we're here? Did anybody on this platform, because this is a new platform, do their homework? Yes? No? Y'all gonna stay mute? Natalie, you gonna stay mute?
No, I was just like searching and looking through the treaties, and I think I'm on page 24. I'm just like looking and writing stuff down.
Oh, you on page 24? You got pretty far. So you got past the affidavits. You saw the claim document, the example of the claim document. Because if anybody must be presented on probable cause, absolutely. If anybody has a copy of the document, and absolutely, you know, I am Amor, sitting here producing classes for your edification, and donations are always welcome and always encouraged, because it takes finance not only to raise a nation, it takes finances to raise your competency levels, right? You pay the Albions all the time. you pay the Albions rent, you pay the Albions to buy food, you pay for everything. Absolutely, positively everything. This is the issue where our people have, where they don't have the problems sitting here paying all their finances to Albions and all the things that they request. But when it comes to group economics with one another, not only group economics, supporting each other, we think we're supposed to just give everything out for free. We think that we're supposed to just do things because we want to do them. Well, no other country does that. If you were making soap, or you were making earrings, or you were making fezzes, or you were even drafting up documents for individuals who don't want to draft them up yourself, wouldn't you request finances for those things? That's open to everyone. Would you not? Would you not? So it's interesting that people follow me and people just wait for me to go on live, because let me tell you, I haven't been on live because I've been on private platforms, but public platforms is really where to go, because you get more support on public platforms. Not only do you get more support, you can reach a broader audience and you can provide the information that is needed for the broader audience, right? Because an attorney charges, like we said earlier, what does an attorney charge you? For retaining their services. And I'm just talking retaining. Let's talk about that.
That's about $300.
$300 to retain? Oh, okay, there you go. $300 an hour, right? They charge you $300 an hour, and they charge you a retainer fee. They charge you a retainer fee, and here's the question. Do they even provide you with the proper argument when they are when you are retaining them? They don't even give you the proper argument. They will know they can kill most criminal prosecutions, most criminal cases, because they're fraudulent in the beginning, not to mention they violated your rights. They didn't have a warrant. They didn't have anything, right? Hold on, y'all. Let me find out who this is. So I have to remove somebody because, you know, they're not here for the right reasons. They're here because they probably have nothing else to do and they're being negative. I don't care about negative people. I ask for donations to support the platforms, because guess what you get when you start standing up for yourself? You ain't got to spend months and weeks in jail because you have, oh, you don't love me. Stop it, hoodwink. Go ahead with yourself. I'm sorry. Give me a second. I am moving someone out. I don't know how to kind of move him out because I'm trying to do a platform and he's trying to keep busy. It could be just AI for all I know, for all I know. But this is why I normally don't go on public platforms, because people who ain't got no life always come and disrupt other people's life. Oh my God, he must be white trying to act like he's Asiatic. I bet you he is. Anyway, so let's get back to the class at hand. Let's get back to the subject matter. Let's get back to the topics. So one of the things that we talked about is the essential things that need to be present for a stop or an interrogation, because as soon as somebody stops you, as soon as the policy enforcer stops you and they don't have the rightful the law to stop you, or the approval or the consent of a court to stop you, they are interrogating you. So you are automatically under interrogation when they start asking you all of these questions and these comments and different things like that. Don't worry, I'll block him next time I come on a live. So he'll have to add another account. It won't tell me to do it. Put user on timeout. There you go. Put him in timeout. 24 hours. There we go. Islam. Okay, we got rid of him. We got rid of him. We got rid of our heckler. So he's going to have to find another platform to go mess with, right? So we all had situations, and that's open to the floor. Have we all had situations where we were violated and we didn't know what a proper warrant was? We didn't know what had to be available at the time of so-called detainment for it to be lawful. Certain things had to be established. Certain things had to be received, right? So if you get unlawfully detained, and if you get and someone says that they have, what's the first thing you should say after you say the first thing you should say? So let me say the second thing. After someone comes and tries to detain you, do you have a warrant? Do you have a valid warrant? Not only for detainment, for searches as well as for seizures, right? So a valid warrant has to be established, right? What should be the very next thing that you ask to validate whether or not an individual has a valid warrant? Does anybody have that question? That's read the treaty, or that even has an idea in terms of law? Does anybody know that? And if you do, drop the comment in or unmute your mic and state it for the record. Yes, no, maybe, maybe. No. Come on, Moors. Come on, y'all. I know the answers. I know the answers. I did the whole treaty, right? This is to stop violations against you, right? And if you are violated, it's also to give you redress, remedy, compensation for the injuries. Because a lot of people that I hear, they got pulled over, or they was just minding their own business, and policy enforcers just stop and apprehend you, right? And then go pull you into their precinct and ask you a bunch of different questions, or just put you in holding until, they just finally release you. Do you know that that's against the law? And that is literally considered false imprisonment? And you have remedy for situations when those things happen to you. And those remedies are what? You can file a civil claim of false imprisonment or malicious prosecution, if that prosecution was based on malicious intent, right? Right? Nobody want to say something on the chat? We done chatting on the chat? So what is that? False imprisonment. I thought I'd have more participation. I'm correct. Is there a law that was broken? Any criminal violation? Is there a law that was broken in private? Okay, I like that answer. I like it. Definitely like it. Because what's the definition? Last week when we had class, we read the definition, what false imprisonment was. And just to give you an idea of what false imprisonment is, false imprisonment consists of any type of unlawful restraint or interference with the personal liberties of any individual, right? So the two elements that have to be present for a situation to be considered a false imprisonment are what? What are the two essential elements that have to be present for you to be able to file a civil suit in district court? Because 9 times out of 10, your remedy should be over $75,000 because you've been humiliated, you've been violated, you've been detained unlawfully. So your rights have been obstructed. And if you were placed in confinement, well, that's even more injury, right? So the only elements that are necessary to prove false imprisonment is 1, detention or restraint of one's will. That could be you just standing there and you're walking, and maybe 2 policy enforcers come up to you and try to stop you from moving or traveling or doing whatever it is that you're doing, and they say that they'll try to say, oh, you're not under arrest. Well, I'm being detained though. So if I'm being detained, then I'm kind of under arrest because you're saying that I can't leave. So if I'm sitting here and you're stopping me trying to ask me a question, if you're trying to ask me a question, and I don't consent to be interrogated, I am supposed to have the liberties to continue on my way. So if you're detained, meaning if they obstruct your liberties, you have the right, even if it's 5 minutes, to file a false imprisonment case. Even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 2 minutes, even if they didn't even take you down to the station yet, they just held you in the backseat of the car for an hour, or even when they're trying to run stuff, when they're even trying to run your so-called license, registration, proof of insurance, you didn't do anything wrong, right? Because speeding is a misdemeanor. Did you know that? Did you know these so-called moving violations, they're not allowed to detain you for these things, but they are. Why? Because you're consenting to it. You're complying. You're consenting. You are consenting. Do you know what the definition of consent is? Does anybody know what that means? Because when you don't say that you don't want to do a thing and you just do it, that is considered consent. Because you didn't voice out your mouth not one time give permission. So if you don't say no, and do you know sometimes people forget to say that in their argument? Because when you file a complaint for false imprisonment, the first two things that they're looking for in that claim is, does it meet the requirement? And the requirement is what? Detention or restraint against one's will. So if it is detention or restraint against one's will, that automatically makes it what? You either gave permission or you didn't. And if you didn't give permission, you must so say that. If you didn't give permission, you must say that. I was stopped against my will and against my consent. Because a detention or restraint, for it to meet false imprisonment, had to be against your will. So you have to say that, Morris. You can't just say, you have to make it clear. You have to state the facts. And then the other element, the unlawfulness of such detention or restraint. Unlawfulness of such detention or restraint, right? Anybody have any questions so far? No questions so far? Imprisonment is any restraint of the personal liberties of another and prevention of his movements from one place to another. It is, or his free actions according to his own pleasure or will. It is false imprisonment when this is done without lawful authority. And we already talked about what would give them the lawful authority to detain you or restrain you against your will. What would have to be present to make it not a false imprisonment claim? What would have to be present? We talked about it literally before we started. The three things that had to be present. A valid warrant, right? They had to have, so now they gotta say that they did not the claim that is being brought against them is not a claim of false imprisonment. And they would have to submit evidence. So if you say, on this day, at this time, I was falsely imprisoned by this employee of this police or state troopers, patrol, whatever so-called department, law enforcement department that obstructed your judgment, what would be it? It would be, okay. And then you got to think about these things. These different keywords should ring in your head. These different key words should literally ring in your head. Well, he's claiming that he had the lawful authority to detain me. So he has to submit that information. So if he doesn't have a valid warrant to put on the record or to show as evidence to validate his detainment of you, if he doesn't have that, what are the other two elements now he has to prove if he can't prove that he had a valid warrant? So if there's no valid warrant, that's automatically going to kill it, because that warrant was the one that you thought validated your ability to deprive an individual of his or her liberty. So policy enforcers need to know the law. I don't know if they always do, because when you start asking, when you just understand, when you automatically, Morris, when you automatically say, where's the warrant for them to detain you? When you automatically say that, they jump into a different character. They literally jump into a different character, because now they know you know somewhat of the law, but they're still going to try. So what is the next thing that you do? If they don't say they have a warrant, some of them say, yes, we have a warrant. Well, what is the next question, or what is the next thing that you're supposed to say? Anybody know? No? Nobody knows? Hello?
What law has been broken? I mean, what law has been
So after they ask you, after you ask them for a valid warrant, they're supposed to say, and they say yes, right? So say they say, yes, I do have a valid warrant. Don't just say warrant. Say, do you have a valid warrant? So before I'll let you lay hands on me or cooperate with you, I have to validate whether you have the authority or the authority was transferred to you to stop you. What's the question? What's the answer, Morris? So after he says, yes, I have a warrant, what are you supposed to say? Come on, open those mics up. You're supposed to say what is supposed to be searched or seized. Can I see the warrant? Islam, Mr. Brown. Can I inspect the warrant for its validity? Because a lot of times policy enforcers act like they got a warrant and they don't. I see it all the time on TV. I'm just going to tell you. I see it all the time on the TV. They open up the warrant, ain't nothing. It's a piece of paper. Because they don't even think you're going to look at it or think to sit here and inspect it to see if it meets the elements, right? To see if it meets the elements of a valid warrant. And if we jump over, oh my God, they put the wrong things on here. I tell you, when I get these binded up, they don't give me no room to move. So I'm going to have to take it back like, look, y'all, I pay for these services. Can y'all provide me with the services I'm paying for? If I can't open the book or up and back, so like, what the heck? Crazy. So we're going to go to chapter 6. If you guys have a copy of the Treaties, go to chapter 6 real quick, and let's see what is necessary for a valid warrant. So let's go to chapter 6. Here we go. Chapter 6. I think it's 6 or it's 5. I'm not necessarily sure. I get confused on which chapter is what, which is why I love the PDF that I created, because you can jump from chapter to chapter or subject to subject. You don't have to be confined to looking up papers when you download them and you bring them up. And I'm intentionally not bringing it up on this platform on purpose, because I want people to be looking through the stuff on their own, because you need to start looking through these books and documents to see what these things are. So I'm looking for the elements, and I done got so detailed on this thing, I don't even know where it's at in my own writing. That's so funny, right? So the warrant, the elements of a valid warrant is in chapter 6 of the Treaties, is in chapter 6, and it's located where? Come on, anybody? Can't nobody put it in the comment section what the damn warrant has to have in it? Really? I got to sit here and go find documents and find locations for stuff to give you what it is that you need, right? To summarize, it's actually in blue. It's actually in blue on page 55. Page 55 of the Treaties talks about the following are the basic prerequisites, meaning it has to be in order to be. It has to be in order to be, right? Basic requisites needed to make a warrant valid. So whenever you see a warrant, or whenever you are having, or even like if you're home and maybe, or you're at a friend's house, or if you are in a public venue with your friends, and all of a sudden y'all sitting there having a good time, and then all of a sudden, let's say 2 police enforcers come and say, we have a warrant for his or her arrest. What things can you help? Because he's already stressed out that he just got embarrassed in public for some two individuals who may or may not have identified themselves, because people think that they're self-identified just because they have a uniform on. That don't mean nothing. People buy uniforms and act like and portray they something. So you need to inspect, right? So the elements that need the prerequisites for a warrant to be valid is the following. A warrant is to be issued by a judicial officer and signed by him. A warrant has to be issued by a judicial officer and signed by him or her. It can't be signed by the clerk. It can't be signed by anybody else. So it is in your best interest to know, well, who's the so-called judges of those particular municipalities, so you can make sure that they actually can sign this warrant. They can't be in another jurisdiction. They're not wet ink signature. It has to actually be signed. They're supposed to have not a copy, the original arrest warrant for you guys, Morse. And it can't be a stamp, right? Because that's how they're getting away with having clerks sign documents, and that's unlawful because they don't have the authority. They don't sit in that seat as a judge, so they can't sign a freaking order for an arrest. They don't have the authority. They're supposed to be submitting and giving that to the judge. And the judge is not supposed to be signing that warrant unless certain material facts are evident, and they are supposed to be knowledgeable of that fact, right? So the first one is a warrant. A warrant is to be issued by a judicial officer and signed by him or her. The second one is it must state the facts. It must state the facts that show the matter to be within the jurisdiction of the judicial officer issuing it. It must state the facts, right? Why was this so-called arrest warrant issued for me? It cannot be based upon belief or suspicion, but upon probable cause. And Morris, I don't think anybody knows what probable cause means. So if any one of you knows it, tell me what probable cause is. Tell me what it is. What's probable cause, Morris? What's the definition of probable cause before we go through the rest of the definitions? Probable cause. Anybody want to say it? Yay, nay? Probable cause? No? So the definition of probable probable cause is reasonable cause. Obviously, that's saying nothing. Having more evidence for your arrest than against, right? A reasonable ground for belief in the existence of facts warranting the proceedings complained of. An apparent state of facts found to exist upon reasonable inquiry. that is, such inquiry as the given case renders convenient and proper, which would induce a reasonably intelligent and prudent man to believe in a criminal case that the accused person had committed the crime charged in a civil case, that the cause of action exists. Okay? That's what probable cause means. They have to really know beyond a reasonable doubt, really. So they have to have at least some evidence to support it. They have to have at least some evidence to support it. So that could be possibly an eyewitness that said that they saw certain things. So they would have to have a sworn affidavit from a so-called witness that said that they saw something, right? So you were right. I believe in affidavit. right? Probable cause. They're not just going to issue a warrant because that will open them up to litigation. So it's very important for when a so-called judge is signing a warrant to make sure there are facts to substantiate that warrant, or whatever so-called case that they try to bring against you has to automatically be thrown out, because even judges, they don't have any authority besides what the law dictates. That's due process of law. That's the law of the land. It's another word. I can't think of the other word, but these things have to be evident. They have to absolutely be evident, right? Talks about a sworn affidavit. So it also says the warrant is to list a complaint, which is to state the offenses committed and the facts that constitute a crime. So they can't just sit here and say, the warrant can't just use the statutory numbers, right, that identify those particular codes. They got to kind of say it, and they got to identify it. So not only can they say it, like if it's larceny. So say they got a search warrant, they got a warrant for arrest for larceny, and larceny is what? Theft, right? They have to have probable cause that a theft actually occurred, meaning an affidavit, a sworn affidavit from, let's say, an individual who identified that individual by name or by identifying it's his or her persons. So let's just use larceny. Let's use larceny in regards to, an individual goes to the police precinct to file a complaint against another individual because they know who actually stole or burglarized them or stole something from them. They actually know this, or they just can identify him closely, and then maybe they go to the police precinct where as though they kind of flip a bunch of mug shots. Let's say that. They'd be like, I was victimized. I was victimized by this particular person, and they stole $20,000 from me that I might have had on my persons. I know nobody normally carries $20,000, but that's just an example, right? So they go to the police precinct to file a report. So when they go to the police precinct to file that darn report, guess what happens? They'll sit there, take the report, take the statement, ask them to sign the statement. It's supposed to be taken under oath, really. It really is. And then they will go to their little books, mugshot books that they have, and they'll look through the books and then say, oh, that was him. He's the one. This person right there. So they positively identified a particular person that violated them, right? So the next thing that will happen is because he was positively identified, the next thing would be for that policy enforcer to draw up that complaint, get it notarized or whatever it is that they do to follow protocols of the court, and then they would go to the magistrate to get a warrant issued because now they got probable cause. So it could be a false identity, right? Because he thought that person looked like that person. He gave a positive ID, but they're going to issue, the judge is going to so-called issue a arrest warrant for that particular person. And if they have them in the system, or if they have their last known location because they've had previous situations, now they're going to go find that person where they are or where they think that they are. And sometimes they might not find that person where they are, but that arrest warrant is live and active. So if they see them, or if another situation comes about, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to know where they are. They're not going to know how to find them. They're going to know that they're around the community, go start investigating in the community, see if they can find out by the people in the community the whereabouts of this individual, right? See where they usually stomp. The detective's going to get involved because $20,000 worth of theft of items. And I think that automatically makes it a federal case, but don't quote me on that. So that's ultimately what happens, Morris, right? That's ultimately what happens, right? So that would be valid. So now let's say Tom Joe was walking down the street and they saw him. So they was walking down the street and they saw him. Or another policy enforcer was just doing their duties and they saw him. what would they have to do to validate that they have the authority to arrest him? Does anybody know the answer to that? What would make them lawful in his detainment if they saw him on the streets and they know that there was a arrest warrant out for him? What would they be allowed to do? Do you know, Morse? Anybody want to stab at the answer? What would be, based on what we already know so far, based on what we already read in the Treaties on false imprisonment, what would they have to do? Anybody know? Come on, y'all, take a stab. Take a stab. I so wish I could bring you guys on to say something. We're going to figure out how to do that. No comments? No questions? No? Guess what? Come on, y'all. I know y'all paying attention. Maybe y'all ran to cook dinner. Get supervisor. Detain. If they detained, what would they have to detain to support they had the lawful authority and to avoid false imprisonment? Follow due process? Absolutely. That is such an overbroad stroke of following due process. Have the warrant, maybe have the warrant, right? So 9 times out of 10, if this is not the same day the warrant was issued that they saw him, and it's not in the person that, because 9 times out of 10 warrants go to who? It goes to the supervisors, or it goes to the lieutenants, or it goes to the detectives. So the policy enforcer that might have been on duty didn't see. Saw that they were, that this person was, there's a warrant out for him, right? So would you say they would have to have the valid warrant? They have to have the valid warrant. So they would have to call their magistrate. They would have to call their lieutenant, their white coats, or their sergeant to say, oh, we just saw blah 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 through the dispatch. And then that whoever has the valid warrant would have to go back to the station, get the warrant while somebody else is watching him, right? And they have the time, and they have the time, and they have the resources to just watch and see where he go. And let's say he goes into somebody's house. Well, they can't go into that house. They could probably knock, but then he ain't gonna come out. So, because you can't go into the house. Can't go into the house because that's not his house, right? So they would have to wait for him to come out. But they would definitely have to have a copy of that warrant. Not a copy, the original warrant. So now let's say he goes in the house, 3 hours go by, they're following him, they know we got a warrant for him, and now they're trying to execute the warrant by just coming up to him and putting him in handcuffs, right? And then they say, and then while he's walking, let's say he comes out of the supermarket because he just went to go get a bag of chips or something, and now you got the policy enforcers, whoop, 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 whoop. You got the policy, whoop, 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 whoop. We hear that, be like, well, who the hell? Well, what the hell? You know what I'm saying, right? Everybody gets shook, and everybody stops, and everybody wonders because that sound is so familiar and so traumatizing because you hear it all the time, depending on what neighborhood you live in, right? So what happens next is he's going to say, well, what's going on? And they're going to say you're under arrest for, they're supposed to say for blah, 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 blah. Or they're supposed to say, well, we have a warrant for your arrest for blah, 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 blah. They're supposed to say something. Not just sit here and just put hands on you. Even though they don't say nothing, they just put hands on you, right? So and his job would be to say what? Well, do you have a valid warrant? If they don't say a warrant, but if they do say we got a warrant for your arrest, well, can I see the warrant? Right? And this is before they even touch hands on you, really. Even though they have the right to touch hands on you, but to minimize a altercation, because they're supposed to also be respectful of the peace and harmony of the community. They're supposed to be like, look, we have a warrant for your arrest, even if they're surrounding them, but like, we got a warrant for your arrest. And if they say, well, can I see a copy of the warrant before I allow you to touch me? Because I need to make sure you have a valid warrant. 9 times out of 10, people freaking fly down the street, or they go run into a house or run into a building, or now it's this big chase, because 9 times out of 10, if he's committing larceny, it's not the first time he committed larceny, y'all. It's not the first time. So he gonna run because he knows a warrant. And he know he committed a felony. And he know that he, 9 times out of 10, because when you're participating in a particular act that is unlawful, you already know. So you're going to run. But innocent people run too, because cops don't follow protocol. They don't follow protocol, and people get violated, and they get killed, and they get injured. So a lot of people will automatically, especially teenagers, will automatically run. So just because you run don't mean you have something to run for. Sometimes you run and be like, I don't want to be bothered. And if you know you ain't did nothing and you running, I wouldn't suggest it. But I can't sit here and say that automatically makes you guilty. I'm not going to say that. And because of the overuse of power, the abuse, the subjugation, the profiling, and all the other things that our people automatically, especially our sons, have to deal with, I can understand why they do. Right? I can understand that. Right? So in that situation, if once he inspected the warrant and saw that it met all those elements that we talked about earlier on page 55, as long as the warrant was issued by a judicial officer and signed by him, just to make sure the material facts that show that the matter was within the jurisdiction of the judicial officer who signed it or issued it, to make sure that it cannot be based on probable cause or suspicion. So it had to have a copy of the sworn affidavit of the so-called individual who's saying that on this day this happened. So you're gonna have to give him a couple minutes to read it. Right? Because he or she is supposed to be validating it, right? The warrant is to list a complaint, that's the sworn affidavit, right, of the facts that constitutes the crime and the charge, right? And then the warrant is to be supported by a signed affidavit. I already said that. It must truly name the person to be arrested or describe him sufficiently enough to identify. I think that's loosely, because a warrant is really supposed to identify who is being arrested. Because if you don't identify, you will put yourself in a situation where you could be arresting someone who is not the person listed on that warrant. And that would open you up to false imprisonment charges, because you did not have the lawful authority to arrest me because the warrant did not name me. Right? And then the warrant must also command that the defendant be arrested. This is the part nobody really knows, right? The warrant must also command that the defendant be arrested and brought before the nearest available magistrate. And we know a lot of situations, a lot of times with Moors or anybody, any and everybody gets arrested. Those 6 elements, I think it was 6 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 elements must be present to validate that warrant. And we're talking about what just has to be in the warrant. So guess what? When you be sitting here watching TV shows where it's like one person, right? They have a warrant and it's one piece of paper. No, warrants are not one piece of paper. I don't think they're one piece of paper. I think they're like 2 or 3, right? But mostly it has a sworn affidavit, it has all these different things present within them, right? Absolutely, right? So that's just a basic example. So just imagine another example, because the more examples, the more you'll understand. Say you're traveling in your private mode of conveyance, and all of a sudden you hear whoop whoop again, whoop whoop. The reality is, we all know they ain't even supposed to say whoop whoop unless they're in actual pursuit of someone who's positively being investigated, right? In pursuit of someone, right? So a lot of times people get detained or unlawfully detained in traffic violations for, like they'll sit here and say, speeding, you were speeding. Well, speeding is a moving violation, but also speeding is the listed, I ain't even gonna say this, because then y'all be running up and down the highway going beyond the recommended speed limit, right? Because you have laws. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, go 79 if you're in a 55. I'm not going to tell you to do that, because you can't defend against yourself if you did do it, right? So I'm going to sit here and say, let's take that out. Let's say you're just traveling and all of a sudden somebody pulls up behind you and asks and requests you to stop. So they request you to stop, but what are you supposed to say? Well, Why am I being detained? That's the first thing you should be saying. Because you want to get them to say what they need to say so you can claim what you need to claim. Because you can't just say something that didn't actually happen. That would be a false statement. And false means not true. False means unlawful. False imprisonment. You did not have the right to imprison me. It was false. It was unlawful. So understand, in the legal terms, false means untrue. Right? So the first thing you should say is, why am I being detained? Don't say why I was pulled over. Use the right terms. Why am I being unlawfully detained? I would even go that far. Why am I being unlawfully detained? Because they have to validate the stop. But you know, sometimes when an individual thinks they automatically have the authority, they'll just start with license, registration, proof of insurance. No, let's stop that. Let's start with, why am I being unlawfully detained? What is your claim against me? What is your claim against me? Oh, there was a review. I want to see what that says. Yeah, they do. They do whatever they want. Like, they do whatever they want, right? I don't want to show it because they said it was a bad content. Overstand, Moors, when you're making comments, please stay PG. When I say please stay PG, don't use profanity or anything like that, even though your comment was okay, but because you used a derogatory term, YouTube's automatically going to flag it. And then it's going to say, yo, I don't know about this message. We're reviewing it. So I'm not going to show the message. But one of the individuals said they do whatever they want to do. And I'm a challenge you, Moors. Well, why do you think they do that? Why do they do what they want to do? Give a justification for your response. Because I always want to stay, whenever you're speaking, speak in the realm of facts, facts, facts. So it's a fact they do whatever they want. But why? Why is that a fact? Why do we know that they do that? They do whatever they want. Why? This treaty talks about it in the introduction, right? It talks about it in the introduction. There's statistics that talk about racial profiling, not knowing the law. Thank you, Lady Bop. If you don't know the law, and a big segment of the population don't know the law. And I'm not just saying just Asiatics or people who identify as black people. White people don't know law either. They don't even know it either, a lot of them. They really don't. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? On both sides. But if you don't know the law, then you don't know your remedy if you're violated, right? So I'm going to read the introduction to this document because it says specifically, this book is about liberty. It is about the lawful and unlawful means by which government acts in depriving an individual or individuals of their liberty. History teaches that deprivation of liberty is more often arbitrarily and unlawful than it is otherwise. At least this is always the tendency of those who hold executive power. So what it's kind of saying is, we're used to being violated, right? We're used to the law. Understand, why does government exist? Government exists to not only keep people in check, the Constitution is also there to keep those people who are elected officials in check. It's a checks and balance system. So if there was no Constitution, whether it be state or at the federal district, if there was no Constitution, then there would be anarchy because there would be no government. But don't it feel like there's anarchy already, even though there's a Constitution? So why is there anarchy, and why can we make comments or statements that says they do whatever they want to do? Because there's a law in place to make sure they can't, but what are the people failing to do? That's open to the floor. What are the people failing to do? The people are failing to put those proper claims against elected officials because the Constitution says what these government officials cannot do against the people. And if they do, it shows you what you use to hold them accountable. But if your argument is not based on the law, and it's based on not even a fact being or an argument that is supported by law, educating ourselves on the law, absolutely. Because don't get it twisted, the schools should have been showing us this, but at the end of the day, if the schools are not providing this information, it is everybody's responsibility to learn it and to pass it down to the next generation. So think about it this way. If my mom and your dads and your uncles and your grandparents knew the law, guess what? We wouldn't be dealing with 90% of the violations that we deal with today. So it's a systemic situation that has been passed down to generations, just like, what's the other thing that's passed down from generation to generation? When they say generational curses, I think the generational curse upon any group of people is ignorance and lack of activity. Another example of that is, what's another example of that? You know, they say it's in your genes to have high blood pressure. It's in your genes to have diabetes. It's in your genes to have, what's the other one, y'all? I mean, those typical high cholesterol. It's in your genes to have certain medical conditions, right? They say, let's see what runs in your family. And they don't ask you this because it's in your DNA blueprint, or you're genetically not necessarily genetically that it's in your bloodline. Let me just say, in your bloodline. I can't find a word that I'm looking for. It's not that. It's not in your blood. It's in the cultures and the traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation. That's what is why our people have cancer. And cancer is one of those things that can't be identified. They try to say they don't know why cancer is something that people get. They don't know what cancer is. They just know, it pops up in all. They just say everybody has cancerous cells, but some activates them in all of us that causes us to behave, or not necessarily cause us to behave, cause certain afflictions to happen upon us. When a lot of times, all of the things that I previously said in terms of medical history within the so-called Asiatic Black community is just based on culture. What you historically ate, what your parents fed you, and the types of foods that you ate, the way it was prepared, all of these things, all as well as if you come from a low income, poverty and low area like I did. My parents were not middle class; they were lower class. Social welfare, all that kind of stuff. That's my history. But just because that was my history doesn't mean oh my God, the word that I'm looking for is just not coming out of my brain at the particular moment. Meaning that because I come from poverty, that I'm automatically going to be in poverty. A lot of times the reasons why a lot of our people are impoverished situations is because of lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge of the fact that a lot of times our people, our wealth that we may have been able to amass within our generations or previous generations can be taken away by just one unlawful conviction, by just one false imprisonment. And then that just is a ricochet effect within your lives. So if you know, and if the situation so says that, oh, you've been falsely imprisoned, don't you think you should ask for a remedy for the violations that you have been falsely imprisoned? Because not only was your liberties taken away from you, you might have had a case that is sticking with you because you didn't have the time, energy to finance, or the support from your family to fight an all unlawful criminal charge. I'm not going to sit here and say that every charge that our people are dealing with is lawful or unlawful. But you need to at least hold it up to law. Hold it up to law to see which one it is, right? So this class is to get us to stop being scared of everything and to start living in our purpose and living in our power and not thinking that just because time elapsed, change is inevitable. No. And I mean, change is inevitable, but I'm talking about positive change. We have to push stuff into that proper alignment. We have to do things. We have to be active in order for change to come, Morris. We can't just sit here and expect it to happen. Because if that was the truth, time, like 100 years happened. 100 years of knowledge happened between Prophet Noble Drew Ali's era and the era of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. That's 100 years. So time by itself does nothing to change the situation of a group or a segment of the population. What changes is their activity and them not sitting here thinking that just because they do something for 30, here's my thing, and I'm gonna just be honest with you. If you've been doing something for 30, 40, 50 years and you have not had a progress within that thing that you're doing for 30, 40 years and you still doing it, but expecting a different result, ain't that insanity? Is it not insanity? I think it is. I think it's insane to sit here and keep talking about the same old thing for 30 years or 20 years. I'm one of those individuals that I will give it the test. The test is the activity. The test is the activity. Well, I've done some things to test these things out. And I was violated. I was falsely imprisoned, still fighting it, drafting up my false imprisonment case as we speak. Absolutely, positively. Absolutely, positively. Because when you've been violated and you can prove it with evidence, everybody who profited and everybody who was a part of and associated with is also a defendant. My job here today, my absolute job, Morris, is to teach you and to teach myself, because I'm learning at the same time you're learning, to defend ourselves against unlawful prosecutions, unlawful claims against us, unlawful acts against us by a party who did not have the authority to act. And we don't need to apologize for it. We don't need to get into our feelings because we've been traumatized since the establishment of the United States of America. Like, literally, we've been violated since. We need to stop making excuses. And we need to stop looking for someone to fix our problems and realize the only persons that can fix our problems is each and every one of us by unifying and doing what we need to do to support one another. Now, it's funny, because I challenge people. I say, when things come up, traumas come up, conflict come up, when more start talking about me on platforms, I don't say nothing. I don't got time to focus on negative energy because I'm riding a positive wave. And that's the only wave that I want to ride on, because I've been violated. I have traumas from that violation. I have suffered losses from that violation. And knowing that for each and every one of you as well, it is our responsibility to do something about it. Together, right? It is our job. What the heck is to do something about it? Absolutely is our job. Uplift humanity. How about we uplift Moors? Fallen humanity, I don't even want to use that term. How about we uplift Moors? Because all of humanity has kind of had issues. But guess who's still having the most issues? Moors. Because Moors still don't understand when, even though there are 182 nations established out there, 182 nations established out there, why Moors at the back of the bus of this? Why are Moors at the back of the bus? And we still sit here talk about, oh, let's have this class on how to be nationals. And there's about 24 Moroccan states established, pending, in action. And I say these are the Moors that are being active as opposed to passive, because there's only so many darn classes you can have on how to be sovereigns. It ain't really difficult because the treaties told us what to do. We just got to stop being we just have to stop going against what everybody else is going to. Everybody else is going to it, and we the only ones trying to justify our existence outside of it, right? We the only ones trying to justify our existence outside of it. I know I went off tangent. I know. Because we talk about false imprisonment. I know. Absolutely. I gave you two beautiful examples. Okay, let's use the store example. Let's see if I can get some participation with the store example. Say you go into Walmart. You go into Walmart, right? And you go start shopping. And let's say, you see somebody following you and stuff. Because, some certain people get followed in stores by their own people too, right? And you go to the checkout, pay for your items, and then you go and you're on your way out the door, and you get stopped by security. And security stops you and say, can you come with me? Can you come this way? Can that security guard do anything to you? Can that security guard command and demand you to follow them wherever it is they're trying to card you off? No. Now, guess what? The breach of the peace means what? They say in a breach of the peace. What's an example of the breach of the peace? Because I don't think anybody knows what breach of peace means in felony arrests. Because without a valid warrant, those are the only two situations. The only two lawful situations for which they can lawfully detain you. A breach of the peace, or them seeing you commit a felony. And remember, they had to see it with their own eyes. They had to see it with their own eyes. They have to see it with their own eyes. So so in that situation where they're trying to say that we need to detain you because you were shoplifting, they had to see with their own eyes that you put something in your pocketbook. So they had to witness that, right? So that would be you commit in a degree. It's a felony because larceny is theft, but at the same time, that's not necessarily shoplifting. So we have to be. And you didn't actually leave the store yet, so did you really shoplift? But you did go past the registers, right? So we got to look at all these material facts, because all these material facts are going to be used in a court of law to charge you or used as evidence against you for whatever it is that they're claiming that you did, right? So that being said, you don't go with them. Now, understand, some companies are getting hit. They're getting policy enforcers that are off-duty policy enforcers to kind of like survey, or they might be sitting outside. A lot of stores, especially high theft stores like Walmart, will have policy enforcers sitting outside. So technically, that security guard, if he didn't witness you stealing, he cannot stop you because he ain't witnessed you doing anything. But if you consent to doing it, well, yeah, he can. If you go follow him, or you say, no, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. He can't put his hands on you. He don't have the authority to do it. Hold on for a second. Who that? Who is it? Hello? Joey, where's Trey? Lovely seeing you, Mom. Lovely seeing you. You too. I saw you earlier. So you guys will love to see you there. I'm in my live. I'll talk to y'all. Don't be doing no craziness in that room. Then don't be loud. Islam, that was a knock on the door. Anyway, so what we talking about? We said if you were at Walmart and you got stopped on your way out by could be just an employee, because a lot of times people don't even have security staff, but they'll have something called the Loss Prevention Department. So they'll have something called the Loss Prevention Department, and they'll come and say, well, we saw you shoplifting. Well, it's a part of consent involved here, right? So if you consent to go with them, well, you can't say later, I want to charge that individual for false imprisonment, because you willfully went, right? So in some situations, some people will go and some people are like, no, I ain't going nowhere. I'm going out this front door and keep moving. And they'll keep moving. And they have the lawful right to keep moving, even if they do got something in their pocketbook, right? But guess what's waiting for them outside? Because a lot of times the policy enforcers are outside waiting for you to walk out the door, because they know in order for it to constitute shoplifting, you have to actually get out the door. You actually have to get out the door. Do you know how many people I've met, or I've had conversations with, who said that they got caught shoplifting, but the products was returned? Not necessarily returned, meaning before they got out the store, you know, they found in their pockets or in their persons, let's say CDs or whatever it is that they found, y'all. They found these things on their persons, right? But guess what? A claim is an injury, right? So you saying that I stole something, but you got it back. So wouldn't that mean we're done? Wouldn't that be a wash? Because you got it back. All right, I ain't gonna come back in your store. All right, whatever. But how you getting arrested for shoplifting and you didn't make it out the store with the stuff? When I ask these questions, these are arguments, Moors. These are arguments you can use in your defense. Be like, yo, they got their stuff back, so what is this about? How are they charging me with a crime to say that I stole from them and I stole $100 when that merchandise is still in the store because I didn't make it out the store with it? Because they took it, I gave it back before I left, right? So that's an example of that as well, Moors. And there's so many situations where other individuals had that situation, but an employee of a store can't detain you. They can't unless you willfully consent to it. So Moors, make sure you know that you're not willfully submitting to anything. You're not giving up, you're not giving consent. And sometimes it's something as simple as, no, I don't consent to you detaining me for any reasonable or unreasonable amount of time. I'm leaving. Because if they stop you and now you got, let's say you got 2-3 employees in there stopping you. So now you can kind of do false imprisonment, especially if you ain't got nothing in your persons, right? Especially if you don't have nothing in your persons. And then sometimes a remedy for a shoplifting situation is like, look, let me just pay for this shit. Let me just pay for it. That's remedy. So you are contracted right there to say, look, I'll pay for it and never come in your store again. That's remedy. Yeah, absolutely. And so what I'm saying to you, Morris, is that you have to know the law. So when situations happen to you, whether it's justified or not, because you are presumed innocent until found guilty, not to mention you have the right to defend yourself and you have the right to consent or not to consent to everything that happens to you. And if you don't consent, they have to follow the strict rules of law in order to not have this situation happen to them. A charge of false imprisonment, because the situation can happen like, oh, Islam, but it's alive and it'll be it'll be here. This is alive. You can watch it later, and this is the first of many because I'm switching from the Zoom platform to the YouTube platform, because then I'll have a wider audience. We can have more dialogue, and I just got to get comfortable with using YouTube. And, you know, posting up the documents, showing you where it says, so you don't take my word for it. And the documents can be found that we are the course material, because this is false imprisonment, arrest and false imprisonment class. So you have the law, so you can arm yourself. So the next generation, we're not sitting here going through the same freaking thing, because we are not teaching our children the law, because we can't teach them what we don't know. Trey, look in the peephole before you open that door. Don't be just opening up my door. Islam. Right, so you have to know your laws. You have to know that the policy enforcers or any security within any facility or any of these people, they have to have your consent to get you to do what they want to or have a lawful recourse. Right? They have to have that, Morris. And you need to know that. And the more people that know the law, now the less you'll get violated, because the reasons our people get violated and the reason they get disrespected is because they don't know the recourses if somebody violates you. And it is in everybody's best interest that they know the reasons for the violations, right? You can't just sit here and do whatever you want. Policy enforcers can do whatever they want. They just do it because they know our people do not know the law. Shout out to the people. Absolutely. So you need to know the law. You need to know that if you're walking, here's another example, Morris. I'm going to keep giving you examples so you can get it through your thick head, because we are visual. So say you're walking in a busy street, on a busy street, and you know, you'll see these in movies. Policy enforcer come right up beside you and just start asking you questions. I mean, all you gotta do is, I don't consent to be interrogated, and keep walking, right? I don't consent to you harassing me. I don't consent to your questions, or let's just maybe say they're not rude, because all policy enforcers are not rude. Some of them are quite nice. Some of them are. They might be playing that good cop, bad cop thing. I don't know. But some of them are nice to get you off your guard, right? Get you calm down. Get you calm down so they can get some information from you. It might be a detective that just, you walk in and he's like, excuse me, ma'am, can I talk to you for a minute? And then a lot of times you'll turn around, you'll see all this uniform on it. You'll be like, well, first of all, you thinking you did something and you ain't even do anything. You're automatically going to think that, right? Because why they answer you a question? Right? So the first thing I'm like, well, excuse me, ma'am. And that's if they're being polite. Talking about the good cop, bad cop. Excuse me, ma'am, can you turn around? Can I ask you a question? Can I talk to you for a minute? And depending on your mood, you're gonna say, now here's the part where you have the right to say no and keep moving. No, I don't wish to talk to you. Just like a stranger. If a stranger just walked up to you and said, can I talk to you for a minute? No, you cannot, and keep moving, right? I know I probably act like I ain't even hear you. That's just me. When I'm walking, I got earphones on a lot of times. I ain't paying attention to nobody. I'm just going about my business. So let's just say that they do that. All right, that's the different scenario. And you did not consent. We'll say that you did consent to have a conversation, right? Let's say you turned around and you said, I consent to the questioning. Well, now he's going to proceed to ask you questions. And then in anywhere in that correspondence, because this is just you participating, you can revoke that participation at any time. But say you say no and keep walking, and he starts to get in front of you, or it's like a couple of them like, well, I need to talk to you because you look like a person that was identified down the street to going into a store stealing. Let's just say it's something like that. Well, you can say, well, I didn't. And if you don't mind, if I'm not being detained for any lawful cause, I don't wish to speak with you. Right? Now, this is going to be a situation that's a little interesting, because they're saying this. They're saying, well, the store down the street said somebody that looked like you stole something from them. That person down the street said somebody stole something from them. Now, would that be a situation where they have the right to detain you without your consent? Do you think that they would have the right in that situation to detain you? I'll answer that question in a minute, Dabe. Why do they not have the right to detain you at Alliance Services? Because you're right. They don't have the right to detain you. Sir, yes. One person said yes, one person said no. What about you guys over here, Natalie? Alexis? Do they have the right to detain you? With a witness? Alexis said no. I'm inclined to think no as well. We have 1 yes and like 4 no's. I would say no. Afro, I'll hold that comment for a second. They don't have the right to detain you. And they don't have the right to detain you because they have to have what? The 3 conditions. I'm going to keep saying this. Y'all got to keep this in the back of your mind. The 3 conditions. They either have to have a valid warrant without your consent, or they had to see you breaching the peace or committing a felony. So the fact that that person saw you, or that person didn't positively identify you, said somebody that looked like you did this in the store, right? They can't take you to that store to get a positive ID. Because they didn't see nothing. They're going by a hearsay, or a witness, right? So what would be the lawful, what would be due process? What would be due process in that situation? Because we're talking, you already down the street. I mean, like around the corner. You wasn't right out front. And even if that person says, oh, this person stole out my store, what they got to do? They can't just search your persons to see because they didn't see anything. What they got to do, Morris? What was that? No, I don't know. No detainment is an arrest. That's what they got. Come on, give me what they have to do. What's the procedure now they have to follow because they didn't see anything? Come on, y'all. I want to see if y'all can do it without me giving it to y'all. Come on. It's a lot of people. We got 40 people here, 4 people here. And nobody got the answer. What do they have to do? Because they cannot detain you because those 3 different situations or conditions are not met. They don't have a warrant. They don't have they didn't see you committing a felony, and they didn't see you commit a breach of the peace. Or if there was a breach of the peace at that particular time, it's now over. They have to see you actively committing a crime, right? So they didn't see you actively committing a crime, and there's a person that's saying that someone who looked like you stole from them. So now, because you did not consent to be searched or consent to come back to the store to be positively or not positively identified, now they have to do due process of law, which is what? Someone must give you a notice of an intent to make a claim, then request the senior officer, and then if request that EIN number. Okay, I don't know where that's going. I'm going to tell you what it is. Because those 3 conditions are not met, they don't have a valid warrant to detain you to make their obstructing your liberties valid per Constitution. They didn't see you actually commit the felony, and they didn't see you actually commit a breach of the peace. So they didn't see any of that. So now what they would have to do is go back to that store. I'm going to tell you what they got to do. They got to go back to that store, tell that clerk or the manager of that store, you have to make a complaint. You have to fill out a police report. So you have to come down to the stations and fill out the police report. And then you have to, and when you do come down and fill out the police report, now from that police report, if you can positively identify it, meaning you know who this was, because now you have to prove it, because you can't hinder somebody's liberty because you didn't see anything happen. So now you got to let the due process work. So you got to come down to the station and file a police report so they can officially charge you. And in that police report, you're going to be sitting here and saying, okay, this was stolen by this person, blah, 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 blah. But at that point, the cop already know, like, well, she didn't consent to it. I can't just search her, and I can't even detain her to search her. Do you understand? It's they just can't vicariously take your liberties away because somebody said that you shoplift in their store, and then they come and ask you a question and you did not comply because you have the right to resist anything that doesn't have a court order. The burden of proof is who makes the claim, right? So they got to prove it. But they got to file a police report. So they got to go down to the police precinct, file a police report, right? Because you can't just detain. They got to be still in the store. Like certain stuff got to be present to validate it. And there's wiggle room. And the courts is going to give wiggle room to who? Not you. They're going to give it to the policy enforcer. Right? These are good examples, right, of why knowing the law is so important. Because if you know the law, you know what are your rights as well as defenses against a false pursuit. Because just imagine if, now let's take the same situation. The cops saw you, right, and they was trying to catch up to you because you look like somebody you look like that person, and you just cut off running. Pew! Now they're gonna be like, well, why is she running? And they're gonna chase you. So now they're gonna chase you. Now the fact that you run automatically make you guilty? Does it automatically make you guilty? No, it doesn't. A lot of people run from the police. A lot of people do it. And they ain't got no reason to run. Exactly. So these are just examples. And now you look at situations that happen to people because they might already be doing some so-called illegal things in the streets. Even if you are committing illegal acts, even if you are committing illegal acts, Morris, even if you are committing them, you still have the right to be prosecuted lawfully. And you still have the right to comply or not comply. And those rights can't be held against you just because you did something. They still have to use due process of law to come and put a charge against you. You gotta know how to stand on your square. Now, Afro Samara says federal law, foreign nationals cannot be detained, consular notification and access manual. Absolutely. But what constitutes you being a foreign national? What elements have to be present for you to sit here and call upon consular notification and access? Because let me tell you, been there, done that. What do you have to prove that constitutes that you are a foreign national? What things have to be present? Because again, Moors just think because they're Moors, and that's your bloodline and birthright, that automatically guarantees you certain levels of rights within the United States of America. And let me tell you, we've been fighting that fight for a long time. Passports, not necessarily. Well, there's people who are United States citizens got passports. They're not foreign nationals. That's not automatic. Fax grand chic. What does that mean? Fax grand chic. I don't know what that means. Oh, I guess you're saying facts. I'm just trying to tell you, we got to get past presumptions of facts. So it's a presumption that Moors are foreign nationals. When for a long time, we've been identifying under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. And not to mention, there's something called a case concerning the rights of nationals of the United States of America and Morocco. We do know we're in Morocco, right? That's a given. We do accept the fact that we are in Morocco. The United States of America is in Morocco. The ICJ has made that a fact known to the United States because the United States think they are not in Morocco. No, United States, y'all in Morocco. Not the other way around. Morocco is not in the United States. The United States are in Morocco. Right. African, the word in the term African is African is not even an identity of people. It's a new term, just like a maxim. Came to find out, a maxim is a term that we didn't use also, right? As you learn, you're supposed to get rid of certain misnomers, right? So the case of France versus United States, that's going to be in international law, the law class that I'm going to be hosting on Tuesdays, and we're 2 hours because this class started at 6:30, and I usually stay true to form, Moors. I usually stay true to form and cut the broadcast at that time. So I'm gonna just stay for maybe another 10 more minutes, only because we are going into a certain area, and I need to go into this area because Moors need to realize that there's certain things that we have to do, certain laws that we have to follow in terms of international law, and international law is based on what? Is it based on contract? No. Well, yeah, contract. It ain't based on constitution. Because Constitution is between citizens or nationals of a so-called state or a state, right? Or a nation. Right. You never have pledged allegiance to the United States of America. No more has ever pledged allegiance to the United States of America or declared or gave their oath and affirmation to the United States of America, which does not make them so-called United States citizen. Because in order to be a citizen, don't you got to go through the naturalization process? And then if we want to talk about naturalization processes and we want to talk about Moors have unilaterally been claimed as United States citizens through, or naturalized as United States citizens through what? The fact that they don't have states of their own. But anybody read the Treaty of Madrid? Oh, Article 15. I knew this was coming. I already know where y'all going with it. I already know where y'all going with it. Yeah, it's treaties. Absolutely, Oscar, treaties. Treaties are international contracts between two nations. International contracts between two nations. What international contract the United States use that the Moors are trying to use, but the United States absolutely used, especially in this France versus United case in 1952? What treaty did they use? Has anybody read this case? It's a very, very important case to read. It's an important case to read because it tells you that United States of America has limited jurisdiction over the Moors or proteges, which is how Moors are identified in that document. And what gave the United States of America, thank you, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, what article in that Constitution, in that treaty are the United States of America using? But yet we're not using it, and we can't necessarily use it because how are we going to use the Treaty of Peace and Friendship in a district court, in a federal court? How are we using these documents? They don't have subject matter jurisdiction. They don't have it. Article 12 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship? Well, what does Article 12 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship say? Because I don't think it's Article 12. I don't think it's Article 12 of the treaty. Because if we go, because again, y'all going to make me go past, I'm trying to tell y'all, I don't like going past my time. I don't like doing it because I be tired just like the rest of y'all. But let me stay with y'all since this is my first time on this live broadcast, and let's go to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And I'm mad that I can't find it. What does Article 12 say, Morris? Tell me what it says. Article 12 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship says exactly this. If any ship or of war belongs to the United States shall put into any of the ports. So nope, it's not treaty. It's not Article 12. It's not Article 12, y'all. I'm going to tell you what article you're talking about. I'm going to tell you what article it is, because Moors think that they just have certain rights, and you do, but you have to do certain things that the treaties tell you to do in order to exercise those rights. In order to exercise those rights. Right? Because the treaty, municipalities, magistrates, district courts, superior courts, supreme courts, they can't argue treaties. They don't have, that's not competent jurisdiction. They can't even argue the treaties. They cannot. They don't have authority to argue the treaties. Not even on the federal, not even at the federal level. Because guess what? Guess what they ask a federal question. A federal question would be kind of like, even though they talk about in the Constitution for the United States of America, they talk about treaties binding, are still binding. Treaties are the supreme laws of the land, right? But none of these so-called courts can hear those types of subject matter. They don't have the authority to hear it. Why? Why can't they hear it, y'all? Thank you, Chief. Absolutely. And there's many of them that are. Many areas have already claimed Moroccan statehoods within those territories. Many of them. And they're under development, right? So the article that the United States of America used in this France versus United States case was the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, because this was a case between France and the United States of America and Morocco, and it was in regards to the rights of nationals of the United States in Morocco. That was what it was talking about, Moors. That is absolutely what it was talking about, Moors. Welcome, John Wood. We're on this platform and we're also on YouTube Live, just so you know. So guess what it says? Guess what was United States' argument? We're going to get into this document in the international class, international law class. But I'm bringing it up because somebody brought up the treaties. What is it saying here? The defense that the United States used as a justification on why they didn't have to pay taxes was the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, Article 20 and 21, y'all. We use it too, right? We try to use it anyway. We try to use it in a court that don't got jurisdiction over the subject matter. Can't hear it. They only got jurisdiction over their statutes. That's the only thing they can hear. So when you bring an argument talking about Treaty of Peace and Friendship, they're like, well, that's beyond me. I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that at all because they don't have the authority to talk about it. Subject matter jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction. If they got jurisdiction over so-called citizens, that's personam jurisdiction. And we talk about consular court. Consular court can only be established by who? A nation. And a nation has to be declared through what treaty talks about how Moroccan states are to be established? What treaty? Because this document said that the United States of America had limited jurisdiction over proteges. Moors are identified as proteges under the United States. And the only reasons why they're subject to that... What'd you say, babe?
Treaty of Algiers.
Treaty of Algiers. The Treaty of Algiers, which is the General Acts, is the treaty that tells Moors how to establish states. Literally.
I've been reading. I've been getting into my list studies a little bit.
Absolutely. Get into it because it is our saving grace. And we are 7 minutes past the end of this broadcast, and I'm glad that you all stayed here with me. And we talked about false imprisonment. The course material is located on the YeSharon Moabite Star Academy website under class assignments. To get the passcode of that class assignment, because I don't want to necessarily put it on this public broadcast, I want people to send me an email, and you could go to the website to get the email so you can get the code to get into the class assignments, whereas though you can download a copy of all of the stuff that I'm talking about, darn near all of it. But more importantly, to get the course material, which has question and answer sessions. Next class, we are going to resume on 4 and 5, which is chapter 4 is breach of peace and felony arrests, and the defenses of unlawful arrests. And understand, these are claims for a civil case, but they also can be utilized as defenses against a criminal. So this is a double-edged sword. So if they unlawfully detained you and did not have probable cause or a valid warrant or any of these things, then you have the right to sue them. But that's also a situation where you can ask for a suppression hearing for evidence that they may have been able to acquire through their unlawful search and seizure. Because they talk about an unlawful search, seizure of persons, effects, as well as persons is persons. Effects are property. Papers are things. They don't have the right to take these things or to detain you without lawful authority. Because a policy enforcer does not have authority on their own. Their authority comes from the orders issued by a court of law. Islam. So if you want to participate in this class, we will be back here on live on YouTube, Zoom. I'm going to move things over to YouTube, but I'm going to do both platforms until everybody kind of get it together, because I want to kind of make it more virtual. I want to get more participation, and I want to get more activity, right? Because I'm also going to start doing podcasts on just information that is very, very important for our people, because we just don't have enough of the valid information that we need to grow together. Things that will make you active as opposed to passive. To stand up for your liberties, to stand up for your children's liberties, and to realize you have power and you just have not been utilizing. Islam, Mark Adams, L. So realize these platforms will be every week on Thursdays, every week on Tuesdays. I'll probably start Tuesday's international class this coming Tuesday. I will most likely start that class. But understand, donations are definitely welcome. Please send donations through Cash App, Zelly, or whatever, Apple Pay. You can send it through any one of these platforms, because donations are definitely needed for me to be able to continue to provide these services. I'm showing you these. I'm not putting on the Cash Apps and different things, because this was the first live broadcast. I want to see if I can actually do it, because this is the first time I've done it. So I'm trying to do things different and tap into the networks that are out there to get the people. So this is part of my community outreach programs that I'm starting to get us engaged. And you can't worry about donations to your Moors when you donate all the time to everybody else. That's an interesting one. We'll talk about that. And what court venue can you use that? But we'll talk about that, because tonight's class is going to be closed. The next class will be next Tuesday, where I will introduce the class on international law. And we'll probably start with, I think I want to start with the United States versus, the France versus United States case with the rights of nationals of the United States and Morocco. Because I think this is a very important case. And I think it's an important case because it uses the Treaty of Peace and Friendship as a defense. And we're not going to read it. Because let me tell you, that case is like this thick, with preliminary findings, initial applications, different statements of facts, but it follows through. So this will be the start of international law, going over the judgment, which is this paper right here is just the judgment. So we'll go over the judgment, and I'll have that stuff uploaded on the class assignment page, so you'll have access to this, because I did actually create a treatise just like this, but I did it for this, so it would be easier for you to kind of get those material facts in that document. So I'll try to get that ready and up and loaded before Tuesday, before class, right? But then we have these documents called that you're also going to have to get familiar with for filing your claims, which is Federal Rules of Civil Procedures, because you're not going to have them in the lower courts, because the lower courts max on damages is $10,000. I think that's the max at the lower courts, like the Court of Common Pleas. I think that's the max on claims in the Court of Common Pleas is $10,000, and most of our claims are above $75,000, which is automatically going to put us in the federal district court. Islam. So my job is to, and I'm going to have, based on this document, which is specifically to, this one is specifically to the Northern District of Ohio. But this is representing yourself in the federal district of court in pro se, right? Because we don't really want to get attorneys, because attorneys are not going to present the right argument, Moors. The attorneys are not going to present the right argument. And this document gives you kind of like a blueprint of how to draft your claims. It's not complicated, Moors. It is not complicated to represent yourself in these courts, whereas though you can make sure the proper arguments and the proper facts are introduced to get these cases heard and adjudicated appropriately. Because if the one thing I can say to you, Moors, is the attorney's only job is to bring you to court. That's it. So they bring you there and they leave you there because they do not defend you. Unless you know what to tell them to do, right? And with that, if there are no questions or any last comments, because like I said, we went over 15 minutes in the broadcast. There's no further comments. We are going to yield. So I am going to yield 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, to any comments that you want to make at the end of this. But again, please send donations. I will put in a comment section of this broadcast at the close of class for donations. Please subscribe to the channel. The channel is YeSharon Moabite Star Academy on YouTube. Please subscribe so you will get notifications every week of these classes, and that will help me not have to send email notifications out. But by the way, I will continue to do those until you guys get kind of used to the flow of things on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Any last minute questions or comments? Islam. I always end my broadcast with the Moorish prayer. It is what? What's the Moorish prayer? Anybody know it? The Moorish prayer. Keep doing it on your. I am going to do it on both, because I know nobody. Everybody is. I am going to do it on both for at least a time. So what is the Moorish prayer? Does anybody know the Moorish prayer? Let's see if anybody knows the Moorish prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, noble Drew Ali. And I brought it up on my page, but I'll start to kind of really get back into the swing of things on my YouTube, on my page. Please visit the website for the course material again. It's YeSharon Moabite Star Academy, YeSharon Moabite Star Academy.com, and you tap on the class assignment section. But if you don't have the passcode to get into that page in order to get the course material, go down to the contacts page of the website, send me an email, and I will send you the link. I will send you the code to log in. And obviously, they mess with you, they mess with me. That's one of my that's one of my colleagues says all the time. They mess with you, they mess with me. That's what unity is really about. And have a great weekend if I don't talk to you before the weekend. And please, please, please study and show yourself approved. Islam. Peace and love, y'all. I don't know how to end this live. I just want y'all to know that.
Peace and love. Sorry I was late.
It is okay.